Hey guys, this is Stephanie and I'm Stacks on Stacks on Stacks. Today I'm coming to you guys with a fun new concept that I came up with a couple months ago. I just wasn't sure how to execute it. And that is book versus movie. First I read a book and then I watched a movie that is based on that book. And then I'm gonna go ahead and do a little review, let you know what I think, and I would love to hear what you guys have to think in return. This is a segment I'm hoping to do every month. So let's get started. So this is gonna have some spoilers in the book or in the movie. So if it's a book you haven't read and you wanna be surprised, or it's a movie you haven't seen and you wanna be surprised, do not watch this because I'm gonna have spoilers throughout the whole thing. Let me tell you, the spoilers aren't super bad. I don't think the story of the Lorax is a super new concept. It's been around a bit, if you know what I mean. I decided to go a little easy this month and I went with The Lorax by Dr. Seuss. I am going to do harder books in the future, but some of it was I didn't have the time to read the book I wanted to, and sometimes I'm going to be rereading a book or rewatching a movie as well. So the book The Lorax by Dr. Seuss was written in 1971. It's a book I was familiar with. I read it as a kid numerous times, and it's a book that I kind of always liked. I remember at one point my mom saying it was kind of a preachy book. I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I would agree with her as an adult. Not in a bad way, but it very much has an agenda. So when I sat down to reread this book, I definitely still enjoyed it. Obviously, it's a kid book, so it is a quick read. And it is a book that I would say I definitely enjoyed. I think the story is cute. I love all the rhyming, even the made-up words and all the obscurity. I think it's great and I think it's fun. But the book does kind of leave you with a bit of a question. Even through all the silliness in it, I still felt it was a little bit heavy-handed. I would have enjoyed a few lighter moments. Or even if our character who the story is being told to would have had a first name, that would have been cool too. But I'm critiquing Dr. Seuss. So that's not fair on many, many accounts. He's a classic author, known for his wonderful, fun writing style. And it was a different time, so books meant different things. Now I'm going to compare that with the 2012 version of The Lorax. Now this is a cartoon and it stars like Ed Helms, it has Zac Efron in it, and I think Taylor Swift. It also has Danny DeVito, Betty White, and Jenny Slate, and a few other names as well. Now this really takes the book and gives it some great backstory, and it even gives it closure, which again, I totally appreciate. So in the movie, our main character's name is Ted, and he has a crush on a girl named Audrey, and they live in Sneedville. And Sneedville is a pretty much plastic town to the point where they have to have air in these bottles brought in so that the air is clean to breathe because there are no trees, and like they have blow up plastic trees and glowing trees and everything's plastic and fake. There's nothing real. So Audrey finds out somehow that there used to be trees and they were called truffula trees. And of course they're Dr. Seuss creation and they're fluffy and they're colorful and they're fun. Now Ted, being a boy who likes a girl, decides that to win her heart, he needs to go find a tree. And then his crazy grandma, played by the one and only Betty White, tells him that there is a guy named the Onceler who lives just outside of town and he's the man to ask about trees. So breaking a few laws, Ted goes outside of town and finds this old building and finds the Onceler, and the Onceler's like, yeah, come back tomorrow, I'll tell you a story. Just, testing ground to see if he's serious or not. And Ted does come back the next day, even though he's getting a little kickback from the people who run the government basically. It's the air quality seller people, but they act more like a government. And they told him not to leave and they told him to just let it rest. And of course he's not going to do that or we wouldn't have a story. So the second day he goes back to the Onceler. The Onceler starts to tell him the story about the Lorax, who speaks for the trees. And the Lorax comes out of a tree that the Onceler cut down. And he says, you can't cut down any more trees. Now there's a little more backstory of the Onceler as well in the movie versus the book. And then of course the fun songs, which I totally enjoyed. He's just a guy who wants to make a living, and then he finds the fur, I guess, from these trees, the Sneed trees, is what he wants to use to make his product. So he chops down a tree, he makes his product, he wants to sell it, but the Lorax comes and he's like, you can't just go cutting down trees. I'm gonna put this down. I'm getting tired of holding. So he says, okay, fine, I won't cut down any more trees. I'll just, pluck it or whatever. Well, then when his product is a hit and everybody wants it, he can't pluck it fast enough to make enough for everybody to have what they want. So he, of course, resorts to cutting down the trees. And though the Lorax warns him and says, no, they're creatures that live and need these trees to live, he just cut until there were none. So as soon as he can't make them anymore, he's no longer a success and his family leaves and all he has is his money, which does him no good at this point. And he has basically killed an entire forest. So the moral of the story is, do not cut down all the trees. And that's basically what the Lorax says to him. And then he leaves this little stone plaque that says unless, and then the Lorax, he's out of there. So the whole point of the unless that got left behind is that unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. That's kind of the whole premise of the book, is to care and to do something. This was just an example of something to care about, I'm sure. So once the Onceler finishes telling his story to Ted, Ted decides he's the one who cares. And then the Onceler gives him the last truffle seed in existence. And he says, go plant it. So Ted goes back into town only to find that the ground is like metal and he can't plant it. And what's he gonna do? And after a big long chase scene, they knock down this metal statue of the guy who invented the canned air. And it breaks through the metal, and then there's dirt, and they plant the seed, and it is the quickest growing tree you'll ever see. And that one tree, of course, blooms all the other trees, and it spreads, and, you know, the forest is saved and things like that. It's a fun movie. The songs are fun, the cartoon is fun, the characters are fun, and they took the Dr. Seuss idea like 5 steps farther, and that was fantastic. If I'm rating between the two, I'm gonna have to give this point to the movie. It is very well done. It is a movie that I enjoyed watching. I would totally watch it again. I've probably seen it 4 or 5 times. And I did have to get it from my library because I don't actually own it. But it is more thorough. It has a more cohesive plot. It has fun songs. It is entertaining. And I would say if you want to read the book or watch the movie, well, first read the book because it literally takes 5 minutes. And then watch the movie because it's fantastic. This has been Book to Movie with Stephanie with Stacks on Stacks on Stacks. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I would love to hear your suggestions for another book to movie talk. Please leave down below what you think my next book to movie should be. I have a few in mind already, but I would love to have more suggestions on more books to movies, movies to books. Thank you guys so much for watching. I always appreciate the views. I also always appreciate the comments, so put those down below too. Feel free to like, feel free to subscribe or share. I post videos usually on Tuesdays and Fridays, so if you want to see me again, feel free to look for me then. Thank you guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye. Oh my goodness, stop! So if I'm rating, whoop, not like that.